All right, everybody. Hello. Welcome to another incredible episode of Wellness for Powerful Women, my LinkedIn talk show here. So, I'm so excited for today's topic. It is like amazing, and I've I've worked with a lot of business coaches, but you guys are in for a treat because I've never heard about anyone coaching on business in this way before. So, you guys, like, take notes, stay till the end to ask questions. It's going to be so good. So anyway, I have the amazing Caitlin here. She is an intuitive business coach, and we're going to talk about how to design a business and life you never want to escape from. Like, you don't need to take vacations, you don't need to, like, brace yourself for the weekend anymore. Just like, how do we do that? So I can't wait to talk about it. So, Caitlin, if you could go ahead and just tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. Oh, it's telling me can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, sorry. It was saying I was on mute, and I was like, uh-oh. Sorry about that. But thank you so much for having me. I'm like so excited to be here. Thank you so much for holding this space. And a little bit about myself. So I started my first business when I was about 22 years old, and I was running a social media management business. So I like to say I fell into that business. I launched a giveaway for a local nonprofit. I'm in the greater Philadelphia area, and it kind of took off. We reached 500,000 people
Oh,
in under a
just
month.
kind of took off.
It was crazy.
What?
Yeah, it was pretty wild. It was a wild experience for right after college, to have that.
Dang, tell me about it.
So I studied PR in college, so I knew a little bit about campaigns and how to really drive traffic and leads to a page just from going to school. And that was where I got my job at this local nonprofit. They gave me a campaign, and basically it was the inaugural year of the campaign, so they hadn't had a built target market within their current community for this campaign specifically. So my wheels start turning. I'm like, how can I get people excited? We were targeting young people, so obviously social media was the first place that we went. We're going back 6 years almost now. About 5 years, 5 or 6 years. And so we launched an Instagram giveaway, and that was really where the ball started to roll. I mean, we had people all over the world shouting out this local nonprofit, wanting to fundraise in Ireland, and, Flyers players are coming out and supporting the nonprofit. It had a great trickle down effect for them. And that was really where I started to see the power of connections specifically, but also the power of social media when it's harnessed well.
Right, right. And I think that's really helpful to hear because I know a lot of coaches and entrepreneurs, I know a lot of them don't really love social media all the time, but if it's leveraged well, it could be really powerful. It could help your business reach more people who need your services. So I love that example especially with something like a good cause or fundraising, like things like that. So social media could help really for the greater good. And I love that you kind of were able to find you have, it sounds like you had a real skill for it. You had a real like you're really doing something well there.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that was how it felt. It was like, maybe this is my jam. Like, maybe this is something I can do. Maybe this is my niche. And then word of mouth, people just started to find out about the growth, and I started to get clients. So it was time to, roll out an EIN. But the most important part of my story, starting my first business, was the fact that it all started rolling very quickly. And I didn't really give myself the space to think about how I wanted to design this business. How was I going to show up as my best self as a business owner for my team members, for my clients, for my family? I like to say it snowballed out of control, to be honest. I totally was not myself. I was overworked. I totally fell into workaholism, perfectionism, which I struggled with my whole life. So that was really where I like to say, I embarked on my healing journey and really went all in on creating a life that could work in my favor for who I am, rather than showing up how society expects me to as an entrepreneur specifically.
Right, right. And tell us a bit more about that. Like you were like burnt out. You said like you things were spiraling out of control, and like what did that look like for you?
Yeah. So a lot of clients started to come in, and they had wants and needs. And because I didn't have boundaries, and, I'm about like 22, 23 years old, I'm trying to figure out who I am. And I'm also building a business. I had lost all of the boundaries. If people came to me, they asked me for a service, I was like, we can do that. We can do that. We can do anything you need.
Right. Anything you need, I got it.
Yeah, like we got you, we're going to keep you safe. And that was really how I approached the business. But in return, I wasn't keeping myself safe. So I was promising all of this to my clients. And, for a time, I was able to uphold that for sure and make them happy. But then I really just started to realize that I had to come first. I couldn't continue to grow or scale without looking at my lifestyle and how I was showing up, and who I was at that time too.
Oh my gosh, this is so good. And I think so many of us could relate to that. Like the perfectionism and wanting to serve others and being told by society like we have to work hard and all these things. And so I'm curious, so how did you start making that shift? Like you're in this place, you're like super successful as a 22-year-old, which is amazing. However, you're also over delivering, and then kind of it sounds like sacrificing your own needs at the moment at the time. So what did you start doing to start, like, if you wanted to actually design the business and the life that you didn't want to escape from, like, what shifts did you start making to do that?
Yeah, I really had to slow down. I think this culture of entrepreneurship and building a business and, making an income and developing a personal brand, to me, it was work, 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 and that's what will get me there. And then once I started to, show up for myself in therapy and diving deep into these beliefs and looking at again, like who I really was and who I actually am, who I'm showing up as my outer external, social media management entrepreneur, Caitlin, and then who is like the sensitive, really down to earth Caitlin that I've been ignoring, for a long time. So I had to go back to like who I was as a child and how I help my family internally, with conversations and just how I am with people, and how can I do that in my business as well, because that's what will actually continue to drive me forward, rather than building something off of this kind of like masked me, not the real me, this person that I thought I had to be successful. And in return, slowing down, I lost a few clients, the business took a slow down, but I was ready for that. I had prepared mentally for it, and I allowed for the space. I hired some new coaches, after being in therapy for a long while, and we work a lot on mind-body connection. So what am I ignoring? And I loved your post the other day about the body being the subconscious mind. Of that. And on my show, on my podcast, I talk a lot about my PTSD diagnosis, which is a whole nother story, but that absolutely was the piece that I needed to dive into to make that connection. So I was physically showing up as who I am as well, rather than this like external hard exterior.
Oh my gosh, you said so many amazing things here. I'm gonna try to like pick only one thing, but the thing that I love that you said, which it is really similar to weight loss too, where when you have that mind body connection and you really take the time to slow down and just know what your body's telling you, that's kind of how you could live really a life that's in alignment, rather than a life that you were kind of saying, right? Like this life that you think you're supposed to live, or you think you're supposed to be this way to be successful. And And what was that kind of like for you when you're trying to like force yourself to live that life that wasn't really in alignment? Like like why should we not do that? Like why should we tune in inward even though we might slow down our business in the beginning?
Oh, yeah. Great question. I show up as a difficult person to be around. I can be short. I can be
Mm.
irritable. Like when I'm overworked, I'm like freaking out a lot
Oh
of the time.
yes.
You
Right.
know, really freaking out. Like the bathroom floor moment, which I think like a lot of us entrepreneurs can definitely,
Oh
relate
my
to.
god, yes.
A lot of it for me too would come out physically, how you mentioned. So I would like rapidly gain weight, or I would like rapidly start to like sweat. Like I just could not control, or just didn't even have a harness over like what my nervous system was, or how I was ignoring my body and my body's needs. Like my coach actually talked about this in a conversation she had in her Facebook group a few weeks ago. And it's so funny, but I related to this so much. So for any highly sensitives, they may also relate to this. Like I would even ignore like going to the bathroom while I was working,
Mm-hmm.
go into it. And I needed to perform for these clients. And, if I get up, I'm going to lose my train of thought, just push, push, push. And ignoring my body like that had repercussions. I was starting to get high blood pressure, and I was unable to regulate myself when it came to like blood pressure like that. And then it would be like the sweating that I mentioned. So yeah, just really slowing down and allowing for breaks and allowing things to flow how they're supposed to as well. Because I was so rigid in starting this social media management business, I lost out on other opportunities. I didn't have this holistic view of partnerships and collaborations, and we can all win together. I was kind of in this like hustle culture mentality, a lot of masculine energy. If anybody also does research on that, it was very like do, and not a lot of just sitting back and letting things come to me. Yeah, so that's definitely what it looked like.
Oh my gosh, I feel like you're reading my mind, or you're like, I don't know, I feel like we lived really similar paths. I'm just like, oh my gosh, yes, yes to the rigidity, yes to the not caring for your body and things like that. And oh my gosh, that's so crazy. But yeah, definitely. Because here's the thing, because I feel like, especially as women, especially in entrepreneurship, it's like what you're saying. A lot of us are sort of in this system, this belief system that the masculine energy is what creates success, right? Like being in that masculine energy is what will create money. And so we try to mold ourselves into that, but then it creates, like you said, all these health issues and emotional issues and things like that. And so when you started leaning in though to your your sensitive side and your feminine side, like what did you start noticing from that point? Like how did things start to shift for you when you actually started just like turning inward?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the biggest aha moment for me, which is so funny, like as a child, I was very like curious and, like la di da, like a little bit of my head in the clouds, like, and it was such a good feeling, like as a child, to not have to worry about everything, like not everything has to be the biggest deal. And that's really the huge shift that I had in my business. It was like, I used to lose a client when I was in this, the old me, or however we want to classify that previous me. I would literally attach my identity to this loss of the client. It's like I lose a client. Gosh, I am nothing. I am worthless. I couldn't make them happy, and that's my job, is to make them happy. And I had so many conflicting reasons of why I was in business. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, like I was selling myself based upon this idea of safety getting into business. So a lot of the clients that I would work with, they're coming to me expecting that. And I couldn't provide that, right? Because I couldn't even provide that for myself, internally, body. So then when I wouldn't be able to perform at the level that they wanted, or let's say, life just happens and they're ready to move on, I would still write these narratives in my head about, oh, they must be working with someone else. And, it's because they don't like me. What did I do wrong? And I would go down these rabbit holes. And now when I, realize that a client and I aren't a good match, or when I'm even having a conversation with someone and they want to work together and, it's just not fitting, it's not aligning for me in that moment in time, I'm able to verbalize that in a way that is kind and sensitive and it doesn't burn a bridge. I'm able to be more present with them is really what it is. I'm not operating at this level of like, worry and scarcity and concern. It's coming from a different place now. I think of real just love.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And it really is creating a relationship with your clients where it's benefiting both of you. Like you are being honest with them about whether or not you could serve them. And so they're getting the help that they need. And they know if you're the right fit for them or not. And you're not having resentment working with them and things like that. So really being in tune to who you are does create better, like just a better relationship with yourself and in your business with your clients. And I'm curious, like, so when that started happening, like you're able to communicate more honestly with your clients and you're able to have that compassion and those relationships with them that were it sounded like they were like healthy relationships with your clients. What started to happen from there?
Oh my gosh. I started to realize that when you're not looking at everything so close up, it's kind of like if you compare it like watching a pot, waiting for a pot to boil, a pot of water to boil. Like I would be sitting over that pot, every day.
Right.
Ready for it to
boil.
boil.
Damn it.
Exactly. I'm like, I gotta eat my pasta, and that was how intense I was showing up with the business. So with that intense scarcity, obviously I would repel people, or like I wasn't present. So I wasn't able to actually be who I am with them, like one-on-one in conversation. So now when I work with my clients, it's not this pressure. I don't feel scarce. I don't feel worried. I actually feel an amazing sense of peace because I know like they know what to expect that we're going to provide. I'm providing a service that they're needing. And, when and if we part ways, which is most of the time inevitable with clients as you grow, clients, you get new clients, like it's coming to acceptance, right?
Right.
So that was really like the huge thing. And then, money just started to flow in, like people just started to flow in because when you step into who you are, and this is a real belief of mine, that energy is magnetic, like people are like, wow, I want some of that, or I want to be around that person because that makes me feel good. One of my clients earlier today, we were actually emailing and she's like asking me a few questions and she was like, I just love your energy. Like, is there a way for us to hop on the phone really quick? And I'm like, of course, she's like my best friend. We've just become so close. And I think that when you start to exude that energy, then that's what you start to call in as well. And I was finally open to calling that in. Before, if I was showing up with that energy, I might not have been ready or able to receive the type of people that I've been able to receive now as clients and really accept, that we're friends.
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh. That's so crazy though, right? Like it's crazy how it could be so challenging to receive like clients if we're not accepting of ourselves and we're not acknowledging our own, like just who we are, and we're not owning that and being in that energy. But I love what you said, like when you are just being who you are and you're showing up as that person, that like the energy doesn't lie, right? Like energy always tells the truth. And I love that, people can always pick up on it, even if you're trying to be like masculine and you're trying to hustle and you think you're being authentic, but you're really not. Like people can sense that. And I love that when you just show up authentically, you attract the people that you most likely like want to actually work with. And
Yeah.
and so I'm curious because I feel like this is a shift that's not always easy to make, right? Like I feel like so many of us are conditioned in this sort of like hustle mentality, and that it's not safe to be who we are, and on social media and things like that, or it's not safe to receive. And I'm curious, what are some tools or tips you would give any entrepreneur who wants to start designing for this life for themselves that they don't want to escape? Like how can they just get started? I guess like practically to create this for themselves.
Oh, great question. This is so exciting. So, for anybody that's wanting to start this, I would start to ask yourself, like, do I do anything for myself that I love every day? Or like, do I spend time with myself every day? Am I listening to myself? Do I even know what I like? Do I know what I want out of life? Like when I really started to ask myself these questions, it was like, what does that even look like, without boundaries or without putting myself into parameters of like financial parameters, or, I can't leave the US because I've lived here my whole life, like all these things, put these beliefs on ourselves. But what if we I call this my naked mole rat self, like stripping off the beliefs, just me being myself, my naked mole rat.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Like, what is that? Who is that person? What is that I really, really want? And then you can build from there, even just journaling about this. Like a lot of this change really started for me when I would journal. I love to write. So I would start to allow myself to fantasize instead of being in, this again, parameter. I would allow myself, my imagination to come back. All these things we dim about ourselves as we get older naturally through life and, life experiences, and we lose the fun and the happiness of ourselves at times, especially when we're talking business all the time, we're talking money all the time. We have to outlets,
Yes. Right. And it's so true. Like I used to be such a creative person when I was younger. I'd love to draw and write, but then it all got diminished when I went to high school. It's like my parents were like, okay, your art and stuff isn't important. Just focus on your grades, focus on studying, things like that. So a lot of times we could diminish that part of ourselves. But I love that you said step into the naked mole rat, just shed all the external pressures and all the external beliefs, and kind of start just asking yourself, what do you want in your life? Like what kind of life do you actually want? And before we went on this audio event, you also we talked a bit, and I love the questions you shared with me too about things like, how do you want to feel? Like what are the emotions you actually want to feel, and what do you want to convey in your business? Things like that. Do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I think the more that you connect to yourself, like whether it be through imagination or like we said, the mind-body connection earlier. However, like some people, a lot of my clients, they don't enjoy meditating. So I ask them like, what would be similar to meditating? Some of them love to walk. Some of them love to cook, painting can be a form of meditation. So allowing yourself that space, and then within that space, it's so unique when you can start to really allow yourself for space. Your ideas will flow, the imagination starts to come back, and then you start to think to yourself like, oh, I could make that video, or I could share that message or that story that I talked about with that person at the nail salon last week. You start to really see that content for your business is in your everyday life. It's in every single moment. Sometimes I'm watching a show and I think about, like, actually yesterday I tagged a Netflix show that we were watching in my content. Like every single thing that you experience in life can be added to your content, because when you're working with clients, especially in a service-based business, they want to know you. They want and care about your story and your perspective, because that's how they start to relate and or start to understand if you are a good fit for them, your perspective on life, So yeah, it really just all starts to naturally flow. And then creating your, offers for your clients, when you're in conversations with them, listen to them. When you start to be present with yourself, it's way easier to be present with others. And then you start to realize, everybody's telling you what they need 99% of the time. We just have to be able and willing, and have the mental capacity to create that for them.
Right. Right. And I love that it's all about being present. I love that you emphasize having that space for yourself, like just having some time to just let yourself be with your thoughts, let yourself be with your feelings, and let your imagination just go, and give yourself, like, it's okay to give yourself that space, because it sounds like that's where a lot of the ideas come from, and then it can help you just start designing that business that both you and your clients really love. It sounds like.
Absolutely. Totally. Like, I'll share this with you. This might help as well as a good explanation. Like, one of my clients, she'll say, well, I realize I don't want to work,
Mm.
and that's a great realization, like, we found it. We found the want, the need, the
Ah.
desire. And then we work from there. How can we start to get her involved in e-commerce, right? How can we start to get her with some sort of business that will run on its own eventually? Do we build that business and then we sell it off? There's so many
Mm.
ways. But because we're all in this box in our own world, in our own perspective, we don't always see all the avenues that we have to create abundance. For some people, abundance would be getting up in the morning and having a hot cup of coffee at the back of their van, looking over the Yosemite, like,
Mm-hmm.
some people have a completely different idea of abundance, but we've just all been told that money is abundant, and that's the
Right.
only,
Right, exactly. And that's the thing that really stood out to me about you as a business coach, because you're the first coach that ever told me, like, instead of focusing on financial goals, like, ask yourself, what kind of life do you want? Like, when you told me that, I was like, what? Stop. Like, everyone and their mom has been telling me it's all about making 100K, or it's all about hitting 1 million, like, and I feel like, just for me personally, I feel like when I made that the goal, I just didn't want to show up to my business anymore, because I realized that wasn't my goal. Like, that wasn't what lit me up. So
yeah.
so I love that you said everyone has their own individualized way of looking at abundance, and it may not be money. Like, for some people, if it is, that's amazing, but it may not always be the case for everyone. And having that time and space to just really ask yourself, what do you want? Like, what kind of life do you want? Like your client who said she doesn't want to work, which to me that sounds like pretty cool. Like, but like,
Right?
and so yeah, just like tune into that desire, and then kind of reverse engineer from there. Like you said, like, that's when your creativity could flow, and you could start being open to all the ideas to actually make that a reality.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that you said that. Absolutely. And the money starts to flow. Like, that's what's so amazing for me. Again, like, when I would talk about financial goals, because the same thing would happen for me with my coaches. They would start with finances and then work back from there. And if anyone's interested in hearing about my story, I had inherited money at 15. So I've been managing stocks since I was 15. My life was extremely money oriented, just out of necessity at a young age. So that was a huge driving force for me my whole life. So unbelieving that belief took a long time. But then once I stepped into that, it was like, oh wow, like, the energy of me not focusing on the money and focusing on the actual desire of my day to day is causing the money to come in, but I'm no longer stressed about what to do with the work as it's coming in. Like, when I was reaching these financial goals, I was so overworked. I was so stressed because I didn't have the help that I needed. I wasn't thinking about my life. I was just taking on clients, constantly, because that was the only goal. I'm using air quotes. So yeah, once you kind of look at the desires over the goals, you may also start to get clarity there.
Oh my gosh, I love that so much. Oh my gosh, this is so good. I'm gonna journal on this myself, like right after this. I'm just like, ooh, this is so good. And if anyone has any questions for Caitlin at all, if anyone has any questions about what we're talking about, you could feel free to raise your hand right now. And in the meantime, Caitlin, can you let us know, like, where can people find you? Where can they know more about you online?
Yeah, absolutely. So my Instagram account is pretty active, I would say. You know, we post there about 3 days a week. And on my stories, I share a lot of my personal life. So it's at MERAKI_media_management. You can also obviously connect with me on LinkedIn here. I'm not as active as I would like to be. So Instagram is definitely my
right.
we can't do all the things. And then, yeah, you know, I also have my podcast, The End in Mind, which we will be having Charmaine on eventually on our show as well. So definitely head over and check that out. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me over there. We'll be, you know, continuing this conversation and hopefully diving deeper as well into your story, which I can't wait to learn more about. And yeah, those are probably the best places to come hang out with me. You know, you guys can check out my website, MerakiMediaManagement.com. Yeah, happy to connect.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. And yes, her podcast is amazing, you guys. Like, I just love what you're all about, like being more intuitive, being more in tune with the mind and body, tuning into who you are. Like, all that stuff is just like, it's so good. And yeah, and something I want everyone listening to just like kind of like take away from this talk is really just kind of like, what if we could just give ourselves an opportunity sometime today, you know, just to think about, do we enjoy the business and the life that we have right now? Like how are we liking what we're creating in our life right now? And you know, if there's something you don't like about it, ask yourself, like, what do you really truly want? What kind of business or lifestyle would sound like amazing to you, would sound like ideal? And if you let yourself just have that space to imagine just kind of doing that, then asking yourself how you could start creating that, you know, step by step today. But anyways, Caitlin, this was so awesome. Like, I feel like I could talk to you about this for hours, but thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us, your time. And we're going to have a replay on this with all of Caitlin's links on my YouTube channel.
Oh, shoot. Did I lose you there for a minute?
Uh-oh. Am I not? Oh, hello?
Well, I'll just chime in. Thank you so much for having me. I'm not sure if it's on my end. I just can't hear you. But thank you so much for having me. This was so lovely. I could absolutely talk to you all day as well. Oh, good. We can message each other.
Oh, yeah, I think...
Yay, love you. This was so lovely. Thank you so much. I'm sorry that I can't hear you. Again, it might totally be like me on my end messing things up. So I am so happy to be here. And thank you so much for having me. And I will chat with you soon.
Oh, okay. I think, hello? Am I back?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was so funny. I was like, oh dang, they can't hear me. And I'm just going to try to talk through emojis. But anyway, but yes, thank you so much, Caitlin. And thank you all for listening in. And I'll see you guys next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.